Anna Krueger here. Good to see you. And I'm excited. Hey, Ronnie, your energy is giving me energy. So thank you. All right. Well, I'm excited to be with you guys today. And today we're going to be talking about how to call for sale by owners and expireds with success. So if you would, in the chat box, tell me where you're from, what role you're in, and then also, I'm just curious if we've been in a webinar before together. So that would be awesome. This webinar is going to be 30 minutes, and we're going to have about 20 to 25 minutes of teaching, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. And then I'll also tell you where to find more information like this. Awesome. I'm going to do some unofficial market research. Would you tell me in the chat box how many expireds and also how many FSBOs you're getting? And just tell me, it could be, 10 a week, or tell me if it's like in a week or in a day. I'm trying to understand, what are you guys seeing in the markets that you're in? Perfect. So if you guys do that. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. I love seeing all the places represented here in the chat box. Scott, I love how specific you are. Not a ton, very few of each. I love it. Yeah. The reason I ask is I know in 2020, I'm curious how many of you were in real estate in 2020. It was tough to find a house that was expiring. There just weren't expireds. And to be honest with you, that's something I'm really excited about with today's market. Yes, the market has shifted, but one really good thing about that is a lot of houses aren't selling with other realtors, which means we now have lists to call that we did not have before. So I think expireds and FSBOs are a great place to find business. I do want to share a little bit of my background with this topic just for context, and then we're going to jump in. Get your notes ready, because I'm going to give you a lot of information in a short period of time. The goal is when you're done this webinar, you could go call an expired or FSBO and set an appointment. Okay. All right. Just so you know, my background calling expireds and FSBOs was a lot of nauseousness. Have any of you ever felt that calling these lead sources? I truly felt nauseous. I dreaded calling them. It was one of those, like, I'm going to drag my feet and call everyone else before I call these lead sources. And what I want you to know is, once I learned how to call them and just did it. Part of this is you can have all the training in the world and you're not going to feel great about it till you just do it and get some time on task. But it truly became my top 2 favorite lead sources. So I had a pretty consistent month after month. I would set 20 appointments just from FSBOs and expireds alone. And then I would have other appointments from other lead sources, but 20 came from expireds and FSBOs. And using what I'm going to share with you today, I would set 1 appointment for an expired out of 8 contacts. So 8 people picked up the phone. 1 of them would become an appointment. How many of you right now would love 8 people? That's all it takes to set 1. Would anybody like that? Okay. That's what you can expect with expireds using the techniques I'll teach you today. And then the other thing is, with for sale by owners, my metric was 1 out of 3. Using the techniques I'm going to give you today. On the high end, it was 8. But more than likely, it was around 3 the majority of the time. And by the way, these weren't appointments where I was saying, can I just come look at your house? They were appointments to, hey, let's meet so we can be interviewed to list your house. That's what it was, 1 out of 3. So I just want to encourage you, if you're at the place right now where you are dreading calling expireds or FSBOs, I have 100% been there, and it took probably about 6 months for me to be comfortable doing it. Probably would have been a lot faster if I just got into the activity, but my anxiousness caused me to not get into it. So let's talk real quick about, how do you call these leads? So let's start with expireds. So expireds first. So with expireds, there's a couple of things to know, and please take good notes. You only remember 8% of what you hear, but if you take notes, you don't need to remember it because you have it written down. So, all right. So here's the deal with expireds. With expireds, the trick is, when they pick up the phone, you are going to, it's just going to sound like this. Okay. So, hey, Elena, it's Anna calling from the Haro Group, Keller Williams. Thank you so much for taking my call today. I saw your house just came off the market. Is that correct? And pause right there. Normally, I don't like asking a closed-ended question, yes or no, in an opener, but I do need to make sure that this person is actually off the market. I don't want to get in trouble for calling a listing. that's actually already relisted. Okay. So I do ask that. And in my experience, they'll say either yes or what it is, which tells me right there a lot of things about their current realtor. The fact that they don't know that it's off the market is really concerning. So what I usually say in that case then is, if they say it is, I didn't know that, then I would say, yes, actually, the reason I'm calling you today is your home is showing that it came off market. You may want to check about that with your past realtor, but I'm here to help you sell it. And then I would just continue. Okay. By the way, if you're thinking this is moving fast, you will get a copy of this webinar recording. So that's what part of why I'm moving fast, so I can give you a lot in a short period. Okay, so let me do that one more time. So, hey, Elena, it's Anna calling from the Haru Group, Keller Williams. Thank you so much for taking my call today. And I'm calling you because I saw your house just came off the market. Is that correct? And if she says yes, I would say, great. Well, we have helped a lot of families sell homes this year. I'm curious, what made you want to sell your home 6 months ago when you originally listed? And that is how you start an expired call. Okay. And we'll talk through some of the reactions they'll give you in just a moment. But what I want to tell you is, by starting with, we've helped other people sell homes this year, that is a confidence builder, right? So we are telling them, I've helped other people in your shoes. The second thing is, I'm not asking them, when are you going to hire the right agent? I'm not asking them about, when are you going to do this today? Because what I know calling expireds, and remember, I set about 20 a month for, about 14 months in a row, I was setting about 20 expireds and FSBOs a month. So I do know how they work. And a lot of them would say things like, oh, well, I'm just not interested anymore today. I'm just going to give it a break. But I found very different responses when I said, what made you want to list your house 6 months ago? Now, know the listing, if it was 3 months ago, say 3 months ago. And if you don't want to if it's not easy for you to see that information, just say when you originally listed your house. Please do not take a ton of time to research all the minute details of these people. Half of them won't even pick up anyway. But when they pick up, if you see the timeline, reference it. So 6 months ago, 3 months ago, or just when you listed your house, what made you want to list back then? And they all will have an answer for that. Now, they might not tell you, but everyone has a reason 6 months ago for why they listed, because they actually did it. So it's just a much better question than what makes you want to sell your house today, or are you going to relist? The reason we start off with motivation is, as they remind themselves of their motivation through telling you, it will remind them why they wanted to do it. That is going to help get them back into action. So do any of you know that law from the class called BOLD? Logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. How many of you, and I'm going to raise my hand, how many of you have made a really dumb financial decision and you knew it, but you wanted it enough that you just didn't care? Anyone? What about your last vacation? Which, by the way, I think vacations are investments personally in your mental health. But I think we all can probably think of something that we spent money on that didn't really make financial sense, but we did it because we wanted it enough. Our motivation was high enough. And what I found with expireds is we've got to get them re-talking about why they listed their house if we're ever going to get them to re-engage. Most of them are discouraged. Most of them are going to be, oh, I'm just going to wait, I'm just going to put this off. And we've really got to be able to get their motivation re-engaged. So I have an analogy for you. This is not real estate related, but it's going to tie it together. So if you currently call expireds and you quickly ask them, hey, basically it sounds like this. Hey, it's me. When are you going to relist your house? A lot of people are like, I'm not relisting my house. I'm not doing that today. Things like that. And here's the analogy that I want to give you. Let's say we're forward just a couple months into November, it's Thanksgiving, and you're with your family. Okay. And you have a 16-year-old niece, and she walks in and you find out that she just broke up with her boyfriend of 2 years. Okay. This is devastating in her world. Just broke up with my boyfriend of 2 years. It's Thanksgiving, and you can tell from her vibes that she just doesn't want to talk about it. Well, if you looked at her in that moment and said, hey, when are you going to get back together with your boyfriend of 2 years? how do you think she would respond to you? I'm not getting back together with him. He did this and he did this. I mean, hello, I just broke up. I'm not getting back together with that jerk, right? But if you instead asked her, hey, what made you want to date him? I mean, you guys dated for 2 years. What made you want to date him, Emily, way back 2 years ago when it was new and fresh and exciting? What was the attraction? What made you stay with him for 2 years? Can you see the emotional difference that that's going to put her in? And she starts to tell you, well, you know, his family's really nice and he's funny. He made me laugh and he's, you know, he's got some really great goals and I like his character. And suddenly she's going to start crying. Then you can say, when are you going to get back together with this guy? And she'll probably say, I'm going to go call him right now. You know, y'all are tracking with this, right? How many of you are thinking about going to call somebody because of this analogy? Elizabeth is like, no. Yeah. So bring it back. Quit thinking about your exes. Okay. But the point is, that's how we got to think about expireds. And what we have to remember is when we call them, they may sound angry, they may sound disinterested. And there's actually a term for that. It's called emotional refraction. And we hear of that terminology a lot with light refracting. And basically it's the idea that the emotion you're receiving is not what they're actually feeling. It's like a defense. Guys, if a house just expired, do they want to sell their house? Yes. If they had a good offer, they would have sold it. So that's the mentality you need to have. It's almost like regardless of what they tell you, unless they say, take me off your list, don't call me again. I want you to picture, I am talking to a hurting person who had a goal to sell their home and they're very disappointed right now. And I need to see past that and ask them some really good questions. So you're going to ask them questions about their original motivation. Okay. Emily has a good question. Would you treat a canceled listing the same as an expired? Potentially. I would still ask what made you want to list your house a few months ago. And then I would also be curious what made you decide to take it off the market and just see what's going on there. Okay, so that's how you start off with an expired. And then just, you know, this is a 30-minute webinar, so we're not going to go through every detail of an entire expired call. However, the biggest thing to master is simply getting them re-engaged emotionally with their original motivation. What I usually like to do once I've spent time in motivation, and write down, you want to spend 3 minutes talking to them about their motivation. Just write that down. We go into great detail in the class Mega Lead Conversion about how to do that. We have a whole hour class just on the 3 minutes of digging for motivation. But just know it takes 3 minutes to get true motivation. So use that as a benchmark for yourself. And once I've spent that 3 minutes and they've told me all about their motivation, I like to just simply say, you know, well, when would you like to make whatever they just told me happen? So it might be, you know, hey, Tyler, when would you like to make it happen that you can live at the beach and retire early? Like, how soon would you want that to happen? You know, or, you know, maybe Ronnie says, I really wanted to upsize because my family's growing. And I could say, well, Ronnie, I know that you're a little disappointed right now with what's just happened, but you just told me all the reasons you wanted to get a bigger home, your family's growing, the kids are fighting, you don't have enough space. Ideally, how soon would you like that to happen? And in my experience, a lot of them will say things like, well, I mean, if my house could sell, I would have wanted to do it yesterday. And then we got to get into qualifying them. The best thing, this is the last thing I'll say about expireds. One of the best things that I found with expireds, and it's not like a line, it's the genuine, honest truth, is to say things like, you know, Kylene, I know that we can sell houses and I know that we can sell your house. I do need to ask you some questions to see what expectations you have financially about the condition of your house to be sure that we can make you happy. So I'm not going to promise you anything right now, but I just heard you say you need a bigger house because your kids are fighting. So why don't I just ask you some questions and see what we can do to help you out? They love that because they just had a realtor overpromise and underdeliver. So and it's the truth. I am actually a little skeptical of expireds. Like, why did she expire? Is she unrealistic? Is she unwilling to price it right? But guys, here's the truth. And I'm going to tell this to you because if you're new in real estate in the last few years, you may not have a lot of expired experience. And I want to give you a true story to boost your confidence. But the team that I used to be a part of, we had a lady come to us and she was, if she could have slapped me through the phone, she would have. Okay. She was not happy. Well, about a week later, she listed with us. Okay. And there's a whole comical story about that lady that we don't have time for, but it was a journey, let me tell you. And the point is, we raised the price. We put it back on the market for more than it was. That house sold in 24 hours for full asking price. Her last agent didn't market it well, had terrible pictures, didn't stage it. All we did was pictures and staging, priced it, the thing sold in 24 hours. So that I just want you to hear that story if that helps give you confidence that you can help these people. You really can. But you do want to find out what their expectations are. If they have a house that they think is worth $400,000 and they live in a $300,000 neighborhood, we're going to have to talk about that. But again, if their motivation is high enough, they might be willing to be disappointed in the price, right? The one more thing too, and this is true for FSBOs and expireds. Sometimes they will say things like, I want to wait to see what the market does. But really hear me when I say this. This is a key point. If they just said something like, I want to move to the beach to be near my grandkids and I'm going to retire. Like, I really want to be close to my family. I've always dreamed of this in my retirement. And then they say things like, I want to wait to see what the market does. And they're like $100,000 off in their expectations. Do you know how long they're going to have to wait to have that gap fixed price-wise? Now, obviously, it's going to depend on the market you live in. But I used to ask people, hey, Scott, I totally hear you. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make your house worth that extra $100,000 that you want. And it's unkind for me to not be real with you. Like, it's 300,000 is what the market is saying. I know you want 4. How long are you willing to wait being away from your grandkids, not retiring, not going to the beach for that to happen? And then just be quiet. Let them think. And a lot of times they'll self-realize, it's not worth it. I just want to get to be where my family is. So again, do you see why motivation has to be the first thing we talk to them about? You cannot have a successful conversation with an expired consistently unless you talk about motivation first. And what can happen, you can have a random one that will work with you and you never asked about their motivation, and it can fool us into thinking that it works, and it just doesn't. You need the motivation first. Got it? Okay. Now, I spent the majority of the time talking about expireds because a lot of for sale by owners are expireds. And now they're mad, and now they're for sale by owners. So it's really very much the same thing. To be very honest with you, it's very much the same thing. Here's the big difference when it comes into, I see questions in the chat box. Just hang on, and we're going to do questions in about 4 minutes. Okay, so I'll get to you. With for sale by owners, here's what I found. I used to call them, and it would sound something like, hey, Elizabeth, it's Anna from the Haro Group. I see you're selling a house. What makes you want to move? Because I know we got to get motivation first. And do you know what they would say pretty consistently back at me? Why do you need to know my motivation? Do you have a buyer or do you not have a buyer? And honestly, I get it. That makes sense to me why they're like, I would probably wonder the same thing. Just why are you calling me, right? So here's what I learned. And again, this isn't a line. This is actually the true reality. I figured out I needed to say it to them. So I would say, hey, Kylene, it's Anna from the Haro Group. Thank you so much for taking my call today. I saw that you have a house for sale, and my team currently has about 15 buyers that are looking for a house. So I just wanted to know more about your house and see if it's a good fit for one of my buyers. Now, some of them will just engage with you and tell you about their house. Some of them will, I don't know, is it a good fit? It's funny to me, why would I'm calling you to tell you I have buyers. Why are you snarky with me? This is what I wonder in my head. but they are. And then some of them will say, it's in the ad. Can't you just read the ad? Can you all tell I've called these people a lot? I know what they tell you, okay? So here's what I've learned is ideally, they'll just start answering me. When I say, tell me about your house, I want to see if it's a good fit for one of our buyers. Ideally, they'll just answer, and some of them do. For anyone who doesn't, or they just tell me to look at the ad, the best thing that you can do is say, you know what, Kylene, I hear you. I do see your ad. And the thing is, there are 300 other homes that are very much like yours on the market right now. So if I had to convince my buyer to buy your house, what would I tell him? And that's the line. If I had to convince my buyer to buy your house out of all the others, what would I tell him? And without fail, and I'm telling you, this works like gold. They start saying things like, oh, we have really nice, old trees. The neighbors are nice. I just redid the flooring, new kitchen. I just put in a pool. And they just start telling you all this stuff that they did to the house or why they like it. Because your question was, if I had to convince a buyer to buy our house or buy your house, what would I tell them? And so they're going to then tell you the fantastic features. Once they've done that, now it is very easy to ask about motivation. Now I can say, wow, Kylene, it sounds like a really great house. What's making you want to move? Now it's more of a conversation. And I found that worked beautifully. So I'm still wanting to get motivation first. And I just learned with FSBOs, I got to ease into it. So the way to do that is I have this many buyers. If you're a single agent and you have one buyer, say, hey, I have a buyer who's looking for a house. I saw you have one listed. I would love to know more about your house. Maybe it's a good fit. Tell me all about your house. So no matter your situation, that's how you can approach it, whether you're on a team or a single agent. Get them talking about their house. And then here's how you transition it into listing. And doing this, I would set 1 out of 3 pretty consistently for FSBOs. It got to the point, if it was the end of the day and I did not have an appointment, I would think, all right, I just need to call FSBOs because I knew I would get one pretty quick. It's a wonderful lead source. So I would then transition it. They tell me their motivation. I've heard about why they love their house. And then I would say, all right, Tyler, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell our buyer agents about this house. If you're a single agent, you could say, I'm going to tell the realtors in my office, you're part of a brokerage, right? I'm going to make sure other realtors know about this house. So if it is a good fit, we can get you a buyer and help you sell it. But I have to ask you, you usually can make a lot more money listing it with a realtor. What made you decide to do for sale by owner? And it usually boils down to they think they can make more money or they had a really bad experience. And what we know, it's been studied that usually when they list with an agent, they make 12% more. That's proven. And I used to think when I was a new agent, how? Like how? They're paying us a commission. How? I don't understand. And in large part, I know on my team anyway, and it might be different where you live, but when a home is listed through an agent, it syndicates out to over 200 websites. And most FSBOs have it on like 1 or 2. And so just simply the exposure is part of it. And then also negotiating ability. A lot of FSBOs, if a realtor comes to them and says, hey, my client wants $15,000 of repairs to be done, they don't know how to negotiate that. They don't know what's required by law, what's not required by law. So I just like to say, hey, I'll let our buyers know about this, but I'm just curious what's made you not list. You usually can make a lot more money with an agent. I'm just curious. And then now you can get into a conversation. And I usually finish it up with, here's the deal, Tyler. Meeting with me is like meeting with 12 buyers because I have 12 buyers. So it's one meeting for 12 people basically. But what if we meet and I can help you list this house? It's like a 30-minute meeting, but what if I could make you a whole lot more money? And that would usually get the appointment. So it wasn't a preview. It wasn't can I just stop by? They understood this. We're meeting to list the house and they understood. So that's how you do it. This was a lot of information in a short period of time, and we will send you a recording so you can rewatch it, pause it, take notes if you need. I would expect that within the next 2 days. We got to get it back and upload it to YouTube, and then we'll send it out. So some of the questions I saw were, how do I get the training on motivation? How can I watch videos about digging for motivation? So part of what I want to share with you today is we do have a class that starts in less than 2 weeks. It's August 2nd. How in the world is that less than 2 weeks? Can anybody explain that to me? But August 2nd, we have a class starting, and that class is full of language patterns and conversion techniques that are very relational. So the thing I'm hearing right now, and I'm going to be very passionate and very direct with you, okay? I talk to a lot of agents who tell me I am scared of, I just can't find business right now. And the truth is, 2 years ago, if you breathed, you could probably sell a house because the market was just so hot, and skills were nice to have. They helped you, but they weren't necessary. Are you all seeing in today's market? It is necessary. You have to know how to talk to a lead. You've got to understand, how do I spend 3 minutes digging for motivation and know what questions to ask? How do I do that? So this class is starting on August 2nd. And truthfully, I've taught this since 2015. This is probably the most passionate I've ever been about this class because of what the market is. We need skill. So August 2nd, it is $199 a month for 6 months. And essentially, I've done the math. If you get just one closing from the class, it's about 8 times ROI, depending on where you live. That's kind of like a conservative guess. Do you all believe that you could get a closing from something you heard today on this webinar? 30 minutes. So now multiply that for an hour, 3 Wednesdays a month. What could you get if you actually showed up, paid attention, took notes, and practiced, right? So it's $199 a month. It is going to be for 18 weeks. It's a 6-month program, Wednesday, August 2nd. And the website for that is megaleadconversion.com. And I have a discount code for you because you guys are all here. And I think it's pretty cool that you gave up some time to be on a free training and invest in yourself. So megaleadconversion.com, it's in the chat box. And when you register, it'll ask, do you have a promo code? When you enter WEB15, make sure it's capitalized, you'll get 15% off each month, which will save you some cash. Okay. There was one other thing. Oh, we do record every session. So if you have a schedule conflict, it's no big deal. We record every session. And you can have 2 people per team. So this class, for perspective, used to be $800 a month for 1 person. And when COVID hit, we restructured it to make it more affordable for people. And now it's $199 a month for 2 people. You just have to be on the same team. So I'm really glad we were able to do that. So any questions about the class? Because we're going to have to hop off here in a minute. Any questions about the class Mega Lead Conversion? Oh, thank you. Elena, yes, I saw you. I was like, hey, there, I know her. Thank you for typing in. She said, I took the class and it's great. Thank you. Here's why I'm passionate about it. And I'm just going to be so transparent with you guys. When I first got into real estate, I was the only caretaker for a stage 4 cancer patient. And I was 33. And I know what it feels like to have enormous financial pressure on you and not have sales in a commission-based job. That is stressful. And what I want you to know is these language patterns totally changed my world. Like, this is what helped me be successful. I wasn't stressed about paying the bills anymore. I felt like I can take care of, it was my mom, I can take care of her with chemo. Like, I don't usually share that, actually. I think I'm just really passionate right now because I know what it feels like. But the point is, that's where the passion's coming from. I know what it's like to not be getting the sales that I want. And the content of this class has totally changed my life. Totally. I do not have financial concerns anymore. And I'm really thankful for that. And it's just the class. Okay. You're welcome, Nicole. I've been on like a transparency kick lately. I don't know what's happened to me. Okay. All right, Angie asked, what sources do you use for FSBO and expireds? It's going to depend where you live. Truly, it's going to depend where you live. A lot of people use Vulcan 7 or Mojo. Hear me on this. I do not recommend using them for dialers. Okay, they can be they're a data source, but people are having legal problems with dialers. So I would not use the dialers without checking with someone in your local area about the law. but they are good for finding data. All right. What other questions do you guys have, either about class? I'm trying to just look at the chat box here. If you're the third agent that's calling, I like to just try to get people to laugh. Laughter is a great rapport builder. And I would just say, oh, dang it, I thought my lucky number is 7. And then I would just keep going. So anyway, what made you want to list your house 6 months ago? And they kind of chuckle. Or sometimes I would say, you know, if you knew you'd be so popular today, would you have put your phone on? And they're like, no. Or they'll say, like, why is everyone calling me today? My house was listed. Where were you when my house was listed? And just tell them the truth and just say, hey, you know what? I would have loved to have called you. I'm not allowed to call you when you're listed with another agent. And a lot of times they're like, oh, why didn't anybody else explain that to me today? And so just the point is just come from contribution. Just come from contribution. All right. So Tyler, I see your question. It's a very good question. We're over time. I'll tell you the quick answer. And it's not going to be sufficient. I'll just tell you, we spend an hour teaching how to uncover the true objection in class. And then we spend the next week a whole hour practicing. So it's like a 2-hour answer to get really good at objections. But here's the quick answer. I would just say, what would need to happen to make you list with an agent? Just pretend. What would need to happen for you to be comfortable listing with an agent, and just see what they say. They probably were just burned. And honestly, it's a lack of education. Objections are lack of education. Write that down. Just objections are a lack of education. So it's our job to figure out, well, what is the education they're missing and how can I educate them? And I think, Tyler, the mindset would be this is kind of fun. How am I going to win them over? That's how I used to try to think of it. Like, boy, Tyler, he doesn't know it yet, but we are going to be friends by the time we hang up this call. Like and it just kind of became almost, in part that's probably my personality, but I've always been drawn to the people who have this, like, don't talk to me vibe. It's like, there's something in me that makes them want to just talk to me. Like, I'm going to get them laughing before we leave. I'm just not sure how. And I think that mentality really helps with these leads. Okay. All right. We are over time and we do have a hard cutoff. I'm 5 minutes late for a call, but I wanted to hang on and answer your questions. So I'm going to need to go. But please join me at megaleadconversion.com. Again, class starts in about 10 days and use the code WEB15. Also, you do not need to be a Keller Williams agent for that class. It asks you, are you a Keller Williams agent? Just hit no. And if it is still asking you for an ID number or something, just put 0. Anybody is welcome. Anybody is welcome to take the class. You do not need to be in Keller Williams. Awesome. Dan, yes, I'll see you soon. It's good to see you here. Dan's in class, so good to see you. All right, guys, I'm going to go make my call and apologize for being late. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Hopefully I will see you on August 2nd.